4 people booked a place to stay. 4 houses that looked perfectly normal in the photos. Somebody else had a key to every one of them. None of them knew that when they fell asleep. My name is Melanie. I've been a junior graphic designer for about 3 years, mostly working on local ad campaigns for my small city apartment. It's not glamorous, especially still sharing a cramped 2-bedroom with a college friend, but it pays the bills. This whole mess started about 2 weeks ago when I decided I needed a break from the city noise and my roommate's questionable cooking habits. I found a last-minute deal on Airbnb for a little 2-bedroom house, about an hour and a half outside of town, cheap enough for a solo weekend escape. I packed a bag, grabbed some groceries, and headed out Friday afternoon. The house was exactly as pictured, a little yellow bungalow with a porch swing. Inside it was clean, if a bit sparse. One of the interior doors, the one between the kitchen and what looked like a utility room, had a keypad lock on it. Not a regular doorknob, but a full digital keypad like you'd see on a front door. Taped to it was a small handwritten note that simply said, "Owner storage, do not enter." I shrugged it off. I mean, it's an Airbnb, right? Hosts use these places too, and they often keep personal belongings or cleaning supplies locked away. It made sense that they wouldn't want guests rummaging through their stuff. I figured it was just the practical setup for a rental. Totally normal. That first night, I settled in with a book and was asleep by 11. But sometime around 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up to a soft, distinct beep, boop, beep sound. It was faint, coming from the direction of the kitchen. I lay there for a minute, my heart thumping, then told myself it must have been the fridge making a weird noise, or maybe the house settling. I drifted back to sleep. The next morning I went to make coffee and noticed the sugar bowl, which I'd left on the counter, was now pushed back almost to the wall, and the little dish towel I'd draped over the oven handle was folded neatly on the counter beside the sink. It was barely noticeable, but I was sure I hadn't done it. I just thought, maybe I'm more tired than I thought, getting forgetful. Later that day, I took out the trash and saw an empty wrapper from a king-size Snickers bar and a crumpled McDonald's cup at the very top. I hadn't bought a Snickers or McDonald's. I just figured maybe the cleaner had left some personal trash. Then Saturday night, the same beep boop beep sound woke me again, a little louder this time. And Sunday morning, the coffee pot had been moved from its spot on the right side of the machine to the left, and the kitchen window, which I definitely closed, was cracked open, just a sliver. I was starting to feel a little uneasy, but I still tried to explain it away. I was alone, in a strange house, probably jumpy. But then, Sunday afternoon, as I was packing up to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Airbnb host, a number I hadn't seen before, not the one from the app. It read, "Hey Melanie, just checking in. Hope you had a good stay. Did you forget to turn off the patio light again last night?" My blood ran cold. The patio light. I had flicked it on when I went out to the little porch swing Saturday night, and I had forgotten to turn it off when I came back inside. But the patio was in the backyard, behind a privacy fence. Nobody from the street could have seen it. Nobody outside the house could have known. I got out of there fast, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my coffee. Getting into the car, I drove straight home, my heart pounding. That night, safe in my own apartment, I logged into the Airbnb app. I found the section for the smart lock and saw there was a history log. I scrolled past my own entry, and there it was. Owner access, door between kitchen and utility room unlocked, 3:07 a.m. sat. and owner access, door between kitchen and utility room unlocked. 2:48 a.m. sun. Someone was coming in. And it wasn't just the host. Because why would they ask about the patio light if they'd been inside? Why wouldn't they just turn it off? A few days later, I realized I'd left my phone charger behind in the rental. I called the host and asked if they could mail it. They said they'd check. A package arrived 3 days later. Inside was my charger, but also another older micro USB charger I'd never seen before and definitely didn't own. It felt like they were showing me they'd been through my things. Then, scrolling through my own review photos of the living room, I noticed it. In the background, just barely visible around the corner into the hallway, the owner storage door wasn't fully closed. It was ajar by about an inch, and a small wooden dining chair was positioned just inside the doorway, facing out, pointed right at the living room sofa where I'd spent my first night reading. I should have called the police immediately that first night, but I just wanted to forget about it. Instead, I called Airbnb support. I explained everything, the beeps, the moved items, the text, the lock log. The person on the phone was polite but unhelpful. They said they would reach out to the host for clarification, and that it sounded like a host access dispute, not a security threat, since the host clearly had access to their own property. They suggested I leave a review, and if I felt unsafe, I shouldn't book with that host again. That was it. No investigation, no refund, just a canned response. And that was almost a week ago. I'm still trying to process it all. Still feeling like there's a cold spot somewhere in my stomach. I check my apartment door locks about 10 times before bed now. And sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I think I can hear a faint beep, boop, beep coming from somewhere in my own apartment building. I know it's just my imagination, but I can't shake the feeling that someone might still be watching, waiting for me to leave a light on. My name is Sarah. I'm a junior marketing associate, about 6 months into the job, still trying to figure things out. This all started about a month ago when I booked an Airbnb for a work conference in Portland. Hotels were pricey, and I thought an Airbnb would be a more authentic, budget-friendly option. I found a one-bedroom apartment downtown that looked perfect, clean, modern, and with tons of 5-star reviews. Booking it, I noticed something a little odd. All the reviews were 5 stars, and many used eerily similar phrases like "couldn't ask for a better stay" or "seamless experience from start to finish." It was a bit weird, like they'd used a template, but I just shrugged it off. Hosts always push for good reviews, right? I figured it was just an overzealous host, clicked book, and packed. I arrived in Portland late, took an Uber to the address, and let myself in with the keypad code. The place was exactly as pictured. I dumped my suitcase and connected to the Wi-Fi. That's when I saw it on the network list. Living room cam, kitchen cam, and bedroom cam, along with smoke detector. My stomach clenched a little. I told myself it was probably just a security system for when the place was empty, and they forgot to hide the networks. No big deal, right? Just an oversight. Over the next day, the host, Mark, was incredibly communicative, almost too much. I got texts like, "Hope you settled in okay," and "enjoying the city," every few hours. I just gave polite, brief replies, assuming he was just being an attentive host trying to secure another perfect review. I spent my days at the conference, came back, ordered takeout, and tried to relax. Then came the second night. I had just returned exhausted. I pulled down all the blinds, heated up some leftover pasta, and sat at the kitchen island to eat. Scrolling through my phone buzzed. It was Mark. His message read, "You should really eat more than that, Sarah. Long day at the conference?" My blood ran cold. The blinds were shut tight. There was no way anyone could see me. I was on the 3rd floor. How did he know my name, that I was eating, and that I'd had a long day at the conference? Right then, the bedroom cam network name flashed in my mind. I looked around, a cold dread settling in. I ate quickly, my appetite gone. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning I started searching frantically. The smoke detector in the bedroom was indeed angled perfectly at the bed. Then I found it. Hidden in the cheap digital alarm clock on the bedside table, a tiny pinhole lens. Just a small black dot staring right at the bed. I packed immediately, checked out a day early, and drove straight to a different hotel. As soon as I was safe, I pulled up the Airbnb listing again. I scrolled through all those perfect 5-star reviews. This time, I looked at the dates. Every single one was posted within 3 distinct, clustered time windows. 3 days in January, 2 in April, 4 in July. They weren't spread out naturally. Then I remembered an old guest book in a drawer. I'd seen a previous guest's entry from nearly a year ago, where they'd written down the apartment entry code, 4821. It was the exact same code I had been given. Mark never changed it. Anyone who had ever stayed there or seen that guest book could still walk right back in. I contacted Airbnb support immediately, detailing everything. I should have called the police right then, but I was so shaken and just wanted out of that place, so I went to Airbnb first. They were polite, said they were deeply concerned, and opened a high-priority ticket. They said they'd investigate. That was 3 days ago. I haven't heard anything since. The listing is still up, still active, still showing those 5-star reviews. I still see it pop up sometimes. And every time it does, I wonder who's there now and what they're eating. My name is Sarah. I'm a stay-at-home parent, mostly wrangling my 2 kids, and I've been doing that for the better part of 7 years now. It's not exactly a career, but it's fulfilling mostly. This whole thing started about 2 months ago. We'd been planning a summer getaway for months, trying to escape the city heat and just unwind. My husband Mark and I finally settled on a charming farmhouse we found on Airbnb. The pictures showed a rustic but cozy place, surrounded by fields and woods, promising a real secluded experience. It was about a 3-hour drive from our suburban home, deep into the Pennsylvania countryside. Our 2 kids, Leo, who's 6, and Mia, 4, were thrilled for a week of no screens and lots of outdoor exploring. We even brought our golden retriever, Buster, who usually loves a good run in the woods. The drive out was long, as expected, but the kids were surprisingly well behaved, fueled by snacks and the promise of a swimming hole. The listing said the house was down a short gravel road, but after turning off the main highway, our GPS signal started getting spotty. We ended up on an unpaved, winding dirt track that felt like it went on forever, kicking up dust behind our minivan. I kept thinking we'd missed a turn, but then, finally, through a break in the trees, I saw it. The house from the listing. It looked exactly like the photos, nestled in a clearing, a bit tired but welcoming. As I pulled the minivan closer, I noticed something else. further back, maybe 100 yards or so from the main house, deeper into the property and closer to the tree line. It was another structure, much older, smaller, and definitely dilapidated. It looked like a derelict shack or a very old farmhouse that had seen better days, with missing shingles and boarded up windows. It wasn't in any of the Airbnb photos, not even a corner of it. I remember thinking, that's odd. I figured it was just an old farm outbuilding, maybe used for storage or just left to rot. Farms often have extra structures, forgotten relics from a different era. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, just a quirky detail of a rural property. I pointed it out to Mark and he just shrugged, busy unloading suitcases. Our first couple of days were great. The kids ran wild. Buster chased squirrels, and Mark and I enjoyed sitting on the porch swing, sipping coffee. But that first night, as darkness fell, I was putting Mia to bed and happened to glance out her window, which faced the back of the property. For a split second, I thought I saw a faint, moving light in an upstairs window of that old, unlisted house. It was just a flicker, barely there, and I chalked it up to a reflection from our own lights, or maybe just my imagination playing tricks on me in the unfamiliar dark. The next night, though, it happened again. This time I was sitting on the porch with Mark after the kids were asleep. I definitely saw it. A distinct light, like a flashlight beam, moving slowly from one window to another upstairs in the old house. I nudged Mark, but by the time he looked, it was gone. He said it was probably just bats or something. Still, it stuck with me. And Buster, our usually fearless golden retriever who loved to explore every inch of the yard, seemed to avoid the section near the tree line where the old house stood. He'd bark nervously at nothing, his hackles raised, and pull back on his leash if I tried to walk him in that direction. Then I remembered something from the Airbnb host's welcome message, something specific. Under the section about property rules and local tips, it said, word for word, please do not walk the back field after dark, for your safety and to respect the privacy of our neighbors. It just seemed like a normal safety warning for a rural property at first. But now, with the moving lights and Buster's unease, it felt different. Why mention neighbors if the listing promised total seclusion? And why specify that field? It was a rainy afternoon on our third day there. The kids were napping and Mark was engrossed in a book. I was feeling a bit restless, so I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the Airbnb listing again, looking at the pictures of the house. I was just admiring the cozy living room, comparing it to where I was sitting, when a weird feeling started to creep over me. The photo showed a distinctive vintage armchair, the same one I was sitting in, and the same antique coffee table. But the stone fireplace in the picture was on a different wall than the one in our living room. The window next to it was a different shape too, a tall, narrow one, not the wide bay window we had. It wasn't just slightly off. It was a completely different room layout, and that's when it hit me like a cold wave. The interior photos weren't of this house. They were of the other one. The old, dilapidated one, the one the host told us not to go near. Whoever took those pictures, whoever made that listing, they lived in that house. They showed us their home, then rented out this one. That realization chilled me to the bone. From then on, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next morning when I let Buster out, I noticed it immediately. Fresh boot prints in the morning dew. They weren't ours or Mark's, These were larger, heavier, and they circled the entire rental house, clear as day, going all the way around, even under the windows. They stopped and started right at our back porch door. Later that day, I was alone in the kitchen, making lunch. The well pump under the sink usually kicks on with a loud whirring sound whenever we use water. I heard it. Whir, then off. Then again, whir, then off. No one was using the tap. No one had flushed a toilet. It just ran, twice, for a few seconds each time on its own. It made my stomach clench. That night it got worse. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a soft, almost polite clicking sound. It was coming from the back porch door, the one with the boot prints in front of it. Click. Then a gentle, slow turn of the doorknob. It tried to open, but Mark had locked it with the deadbolt. It turned, held for a second, then released. A few seconds later, it happened again. Click, turn, release, and a third time. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to break in with force. They were just checking. Calmly. I should have called the police right then, right after the doorknob thing. But I froze. I just lay there, heart hammering, trying to breathe quietly, listening until the house was silent again. The next morning, I did call the sheriff's non-emergency line, my voice shaking. A deputy finally showed up about 40 minutes later. He drove slowly around the property, peered at the old house from a distance, and checked our doors and windows. He just shrugged, said he didn't see anything suspicious, probably just a raccoon or the wind, ma'am, and that he was 40 minutes out and had other calls. He left after about 15 minutes. I tried calling the Airbnb host multiple times, left a message about the second house and the strange noises, but I never heard back. We left that day, packed up everything in a hurry, didn't even wait for checkout. That was 4 days ago. Mark thinks I'm overreacting, that it was just a misunderstanding, an old house, maybe some local kids. But sometimes, late at night, in the complete quiet of our own home, I hear a soft click. My name is Sarah. I've been a freelance graphic designer for about 3 years now, mostly working from my small apartment. It sounds fancy, but mostly it means I work from home, and my biggest client is a local bakery. This all started about 2 weeks ago when I decided I needed a change of scenery to tackle a big design project for a new coffee shop chain. I found a small, rustic-looking Airbnb cabin up near Lake Superior, advertised as a perfect quiet retreat for remote work. I booked it for 5 nights. My routine there was simple. I'd wake up early around 6:30, make coffee, and then set up my laptop at the kitchen table. The morning light over the lake was beautiful, and it was easy to get lost in my work for hours. Around noon, I'd take a break, maybe walk down to the little dock or sit on the deck with a book. Simple lunch, more work, then a basic dinner, usually pasta or a pre-made salad, before reading or watching a movie until I fell asleep. It was exactly the peace and quiet I needed. On my first full day, after unpacking in the master bedroom, I went to hang my jacket in the closet. That's when I noticed it. Tucked away in the corner, behind spare blankets, was a worn denim jacket and a pair of mud-splattered hiking boots. They weren't mine. I figured it was just something the previous guest had forgotten, and the cleaner must have missed it. People forget things. I shrugged it off, closed the closet, and got back to my design mock-ups. No big deal. The next morning, I noticed something else. I was having coffee on the deck and I saw a set of footprints drying on the planks. I figured I must have somehow made them myself. Later that day, I picked up the guest book on the coffee table. Flipping through, I saw an entry dated October 15th, 2 days after I checked in, signed by a Mark T. He'd written about having a peaceful week by the lake. That definitely felt off. The cabin was definitely booked by me. I made a mental note to ask Brenda, the host, but my work distracted me. Also, I started noticing a dark sedan parked way down the gravel driveway, almost hidden by a cluster of birch trees. It never seemed to move, but I just assumed it belonged to a neighbor. Then came Wednesday. I woke up, made coffee, and went to grab a bottle of water from the fridge. Tucked under a magnet, beside a local pizzeria menu, was a small glossy print. I pulled it off, thinking it was a postcard. My blood ran cold. It was a photo of the cabin's master bedroom, taken from the doorway. And in the bed, under the duvet, was me, asleep. Printed at the bottom, small and stark, was the date. October the 17th. My heart started hammering. I stared at it, frozen. After that, everything clicked into place. The next morning, when I finally dared to open the master bedroom closet again, the worn denim jacket and hiking boots were gone. Later that day, I made sure to lock the back door that led out to the small wooded area behind the cabin. I checked the deadbolt twice. It was secure, but the next morning when I passed by, the door was unlocked. Not ajar, just clearly unlocked. Then yesterday afternoon, I went for a long walk. I was gone for about an hour and a half. When I got back, the cabin bathroom was steamy, and I could smell a faint, unfamiliar scent of men's body wash. The bath mat was damp. I checked the shower head and the water was still warm to the touch. Someone had just used my shower. And later that evening when I sat down to work, there was a perfectly clean ceramic coffee mug on the kitchen counter next to my laptop. It wasn't one of the cabin's standard mugs, and it definitely wasn't mine. I should have called the police when I saw that picture, but I just froze. I convinced myself it was some kind of sick, elaborate prank. Instead, I called Brenda, the host, trying to keep my voice calm. I told her about the guest book entry, the footprints, the clothes, and eventually the unlocked door and the shower. She was very apologetic about the clothes. Said the cleaner must have been sloppy, but she insisted that no one else had access to the cabin. "No, Sarah," she kept repeating. "There's no way someone else could be there. The cleaning crew is done, and it's just you." She sounded genuinely puzzled, almost annoyed that I would suggest such a thing. She basically dismissed everything I said, and that was yesterday. I'm sitting here now, in the living room, listening to the drip, drip, drip of the faucet in the kitchen. I can't bring myself to check the closet again or the back door. That dark sedan is still parked down the driveway. It hasn't moved an inch. And I'm starting to wonder if the previous guest ever really left at all.